reassured ourselves with the obvious facts. The play was a time-bound work of fiction. Roosevelt had been reelected in 1936. The United States wasn't sunk into anything close to a depression. Trump wasn't an actual fascist. And in any case, he wasn't going to win on Tuesday, right? When the Berkeley Rep began writing its new stage adaptation of the novel in January 2016, no primary election votes had yet been cast. There was no reason to expect that a modern-day demagogue could win the nomination of a major American political party. Indeed, since Trump had declared his candidacy in 2015, I'd spent more than a year reassuring people around the world that it couldn't happen here in the United States. First, I assured them that Trump had no serious chance of winning the Republican nomination. Then I told them that he had scant chance of winning the general election. To Democratic activists gathered in Seoul for the World Movement for Democracy Assembly in November 2015, to Vietnamese dissidents who had come to Taiwan to watch the January 2016 presidential election there, to college students and civic activists in Hong Kong who had organized the 2014 Umbrella Movement protests against Chinese repression, to students, professors, journalists, and legislators in Burma and Argentina, I repeated it over and over. It won't happen in the United States. Our institutions were too strong, I insisted, to permit a reality TV star with no prior government experience to win a major party nomination for president, much less the Oval Office. Our democratic norms were too resilient to produce a president who crudely demeaned the press, the judiciary, and immigrants, who encouraged his supporters to physically attack protesters and to scream for his opponent to be locked up, who refused to release his tax returns, and who appealed in thinly veiled code to base racist sentiments. I wasn't naive. I knew that lying, race-baiting, and dirty tricks had long played their roles in presidential politics. I knew that unscrupulous men had won the office. But Trump would be a wholly new and almost unimaginable low. Polarized and unsettled though America's voters were, I didn't believe they could elect a man who, in the words of The Guardian's Jonathan Friedland, mocked opponents for their looks, belittled women, disparaged war heroes, damned ethnic and other minorities in crude, bigoted language, jeered at disabled people, beat his chest with bellicose promises of state-sponsored violence that would trample on the U.S. Constitution and trigger a third world war, and told dozens and dozens of lies every day. I was wrong, and so were most of my fellow political scientists and scholars of democracy. It was not simply the shock of Donald Trump's election that moved me to write this book. It was the anguished knowledge of what his presidency would mean for democracy around the world. Over 40 years of travel to more than 70 countries, I had gained a deep appreciation for the unique importance of the United States to the global struggle for freedom. Even people who resented America for its wealth, its global power, its arrogance, and its use of military force, nevertheless expressed a grudging admiration for the vitality of its democracy. Even those who were keenly aware of our tragic history of slavery, racism, inequality, and corporate monopolies marveled at the ability of American democracy to reform and renew itself. And the fiercest critics I encountered were, I found, often disarmed by an American speaker's readiness to criticize his government while praising its constitutional system. Wherever I met people struggling to achieve or build democracy, I heard the same hope, that the United States would somehow support their cause. Wherever I met dissidents risking everything to challenge corruption and oppression, I felt the heavy weight of moral expectation.